Now, in this day and age, making cars out of aluminum is pretty standard. But have you ever wondered when and who was the first company to try it? Now, first, I gotta give you a bit of bad news. And that is that most manufacturers, as far back as the Model T, including Ford, GM, and Chrysler, didn't actually make their own bodies. That's not to say that these companies didn't design these bodies, but they didn't manufacture them in-house. In fact, as far back as the 1930s, the majority of these manufacturers would outsource a lot of the stuff that they ended up assembling, as though they would go to different stores, pick up what they needed, come back, and assemble it all like a giant cake. Now, one of the coolest coachworks that I know, and that most of you know, is Body by Fisher. But one of the other ones that doesn't get talked about is a company called Briggs Manufacturing Company. Now, from the 1920s up through the 1930s, there were two companies that primarily supplied the bodies for Ford Motor Company, and that was Briggs Manufacturing Company and another company called Murray. But Ford was not necessarily their only customer. They supplied bodies to all different manufacturers, including Essex, Buick, Chrysler. All of these other companies bought bodies from Briggs. But there was also massive competition between Briggs and Murray. So Briggs needed some sort of an edge in order to make their bodies more desirable. Briggs was noticing that over the last few years, bodies were becoming more and more heavy, and it was getting harder and harder for these manufacturers to kind of keep up with the amount of weight that was being added. It should also be said that there was a bit of a scandal with Briggs. They kind of started marking up their steel, the Ford Motor Company, and they got caught. So there was a great deal of revenue coming in from their marked up steel rates that vanished once Ford kind of caught on. So if Briggs could basically make a body that was incredibly light, that would give them a huge market advantage. Also, it would take away Ford being the middleman standing between them and their steel supply. So Briggs reached out to the Aluminum Company of America, Alcoa, and they jumped at the opportunity to get their product into the automotive industry. It was now the late 30s, and the prototypes were finished. They had tested them, and they were exactly what Briggs had hoped for when they initially started the project. Their only real problem was aluminum was more expensive to manufacture than steel. But this wasn't what killed the project. They honestly wanted to move forward because they thought just the advantage of the aluminum would be enough to get manufacturers to start using the product. So why don't we see aluminum bodies from the late 1930s, early 1940s? Well, you can thank World War II for that, because World War II broke out in Europe and aluminum production switched from civilian production to wartime production, which meant the accessibility to aluminum completely vanished overnight. And along with it was Briggs's opportunity for an aluminum lightweight body.